All right, that's it, JJ. We have led in to it in the previous episode. We're here. I don't know if it's the coffee I've been drinking all day because I knew we were doing a back-to-back, or if it's thinking about this movie, but I am kind of shaking a little bit.
A little bit
Yeah, my
scared?
hands are going. I have like a minor heart palpitation.
You're so excited to be talking about Rogue One, a Star Wars story?
Palpitation. What? Yeah.
Get out of here. That's a horrible pun.
My heart's hurting a little bit. And it's not because of the end of the movie. Anyway,
I was
hold
going
on.
to say,
hold on.
spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. We're going to talk about spoilers.
Spoiler alert. I guess it's a spoiler. We'll continue to call this a spoiler despite our previous iterations of what spoilers actually are. I'm going to talk about that in another podcast because comicbook.com is one of the worst websites in the world. And I might write a blog. One of the things that I forgot to mention on the other podcast, and we'll talk about it next main podcast in case people don't talk about it, is that this year for We Were Gamers, we're going to start a blog on the website for JJ
That's a good
and
idea.
Yeah, so it's for JJ and I to talk about things that maybe we don't get to because all our episodes, they're only 50 minutes usually. Our last episode went kind of long because it was the first one in the new year, but all our episodes, we end up cutting stuff out, and there's many, many, many things we want to talk about, or we don't think they're going to be interesting for us to discuss because we agree on them.
Yeah, it's like, hey, Andrew, don't you think this thing is cool? Yeah.
But we don't have much more to say than that. Or like, hey, did you see that dumb thing about that? Man, people are dumb. Yeah, they are.
Yep. Good discussion.
It's not the greatest thing, but sometimes we want you to know about them. So look for that in the coming month. There'll be a new blog page, and I'll mention it on the next main episode too. And one of them will be my opinion on comicbook.com.
Okay, well, back to the matter at hand, which is Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Oh my God,
about which we're going to talk about a lot of spoilers.
Oh yeah, okay, so yeah, spoiler alert. We're going to talk about the end of the movie and everything
the whole
that
rest of the
happens.
movie. So get ready.
I feel like a bad podcast host doing this. I've only seen the movie once.
I mean, so have I. I'm not going to say it again.
Oh, okay, because I feel like there's tons that you would see seeing this twice.
I think so. But also I feel like I got most of it by having watched A New Hope pretty close to before we saw it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I just skimmed through it really quick on my movie library.
Oh, okay, because this definitely made me want to watch the original series again.
Yeah, as it should, intentionally, I think.
Do you think this revitalized people's interest in that because they're going to bring out a whole bunch of new editions for this now?
Of this or
no, of the 4, 5, 6.
Oh, I don't know. What I'm not going to buy them. I don't need different copies of those movies.
No, I know, but overall, marketing wise, do you think?
Sure, I don't know. It's here's my opinion. This movie is a fun movie to watch, and I had a good time watching it.
Okay.
If you haven't seen a good number of Star Wars movies, including all the original ones, don't see this movie.
Oh, okay. So we're going to start there.
You're going to have a bad time.
We're going to start here because that is my, in a nutshell, review of this movie is that if you love Star Wars and you're a Star Wars nut,
or even like a casual fan and know some things about Star Wars.
If you've seen all the movies, I guess you could do this movie and come away from it really liking it. But if you are into it like JJ and I are, and you read all those old X-Wing Rogue Squadron novels, which don't matter anymore, but you read them, or you've watched Star Wars Rebels and the Clone Wars TV shows, and you're kind of a little deeper into this movie is made for fans, dude.
Yes, it is. It was made very specifically to give a ton of fan service.
Not in the usual way, though. Not in the, like, every 2 minutes there's a one-liner that you're kind of like, oh, haha, I get that old reference from that old movie. Yeah, there's a few of them, like, C-3PO's in it for 2 seconds and said, nobody ever tells me what we're doing. And you're like, oh, ha, that's cool.
Yeah, but it's also a lot of it. Yes, I agree with you, but also they do a lot of that to help establish like the timeline that things are happening in. But also the problem with that is that if you haven't seen those movies, you don't understand what is happening. And that's the issue I have with this movie.
I don't agree with you. I think, and this is why I'm glad I haven't seen episode 4 before this. I want to go now and watch episode 4 after seeing this and see, like, if those references, like, oh, you're kind of like, oh, those are weird droids. And then you go to the next movie and you're like, oh, those droids.
So, yeah, it's...
Because imagine you're watching this...
The lead-in from this movie to episode 4 is pretty much as good as you can do, considering it wasn't conceived of before, like, it was, you know, they made up the idea of this movie.
Yeah.
To lead directly into 4, and they did a really good job of that. I think.
Imagine you're watching these movies in sequence. So you've watched episode 1, 2, 3. This is episode 3.5.
Yeah, it is, right? It's similar to that, although it's later. But
rewatch them in order. You already know who R2 and C-3PO are because you've watched episode 3.
You knew who R2 was because he shows up in like 1 and 2 and stuff too. Also,
but that's what I'm saying is like you're saying the references for those are kind of like, oh, you won't get it.
No, I'm just saying that there's parts of like how they try to frame parts of this movie happening during parts of episode 4.
None of this happens during episode 4.
No, but like some of the characters and stuff show up. They're trying to show you like the timeline of like where it takes place, but you don't get those references if you haven't seen that movie.
But I think we're disagreeing, and I don't know if we're disagreeing, but I feel like we are. My point is that you should just delete the difference between this and episode 4 and just consider this movie the first 2 hours of episode 4.
But then they don't do any establishing work. Like, why do you care that they show this, like, that weird gold robot and the R2 droid that you saw before?
But it's not a weird gold robot because you've seen episode 1, 2, and 3.
No, but my point is that you see them, like, why are they in this movie then? They don't do any work. They have one line. It's a throwaway. Like, why did they have them then?
But it's not a throwaway because, like I said, it's the first 2 hours of episode 4. You're going to see them again 25 minutes later when you watch episode 4.
It doesn't add anything to this movie, though. All it does is tell you, look at these cool characters that you like. It's fan service. That's why it's there. And
I agree with you that it's fan service in a way, but in another way it's not. Like, so Senator Organa is walking away from Mon Mothma, right, at one point in this movie.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And he says, Captain Antilles, come with me. We got to talk about my plans, right?
Right.
That's a throwaway line, too, but it establishes that Wedge is with him getting ready to get the Corellian Corvette ready to go, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's fan service, and there's a lot of weird lines that you're like, oh, snap. But at the same time, it's so well done that it's essentially like the last half of this movie is the first half of episode 4. It makes episode 4 make a lot more sense, and it also makes it it changes the pace for me of episode 4, right? Like, oh, wow, the Battle of Scarif is the beginning of that movie. There's a lot happening rather than what you feel like when you've watched episode 4 before this existed, where like, okay, there's kind of like it's a sleepy alliance, in the background.
No, so I think the issue of changing the context of the start of episode 4 is actually part of the problem, I think. The thing that's good about the opening to Star Wars, the original episode 4, is that it sets everything up without having to tell you anything, right? You see this little ship, look how cool it is, it comes by, and then you see this big, huge, imposing Imperial thing flying behind it, shooting at it, and you're like, oh dang, that thing is huge compared to that little ship. It immediately tells you, little guys, big bad guys, shooting at them. You get all the context you need for like good and bad, right and wrong in that like opening shot.
Do you think this takes away from that?
Yes, because now you're like, oh, well, it's just the Imperials chasing after this little ship that had their plans or whatever on it. Mm-hmm. And now it's just like a continuation of this giant CG battle fest that they had before, and you lose the context. Like,
okay.
Adding the context doesn't help that movie. That movie was fine the way it was. You didn't need to change context around episode 4 to make it better. I don't
think that episode 4 needed to be made better, and I don't know that it makes.
Well, it didn't because they didn't really change it. But my point is like adding this context of like we know how they got the plans is cool and fun, but it doesn't really change anything about the Star Wars story overall, right? Because in theory, everything that happens here should have been self-contained because it doesn't get referenced at all in the rest of the movies.
Agreed, and it is.
They do a good job of killing everyone at the end, so that everything is.
There was the spoiler, you guys.
mean, we got to talk about it. Whatever.
No, I know we are going to talk about it. So,
but it was
if they
the
didn't
only
listen,
answer.
They didn't listen. But yeah, everybody dies. So this is self-contained, which was a good decision.
Yes, it was. And they had to do it because if they left any of them alive, then immediately you go, why wasn't that person talked about in 4 or 5 or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where did those people go?
Now, I think I see your point. Episode 4 was fine as it was. In this, it just changes the pacing to the beginning to me, where you get the idea that, like, Darth Vader hasn't been chasing her for months, trying to get these Death Star plans, and the Alliance hasn't been around for 5 years in the quiet, and they're all, it creates this fractious sense that the Alliance is brand new at the beginning of this movie, essentially, right?
Right, pretty
episode
close.
4, initially I had the idea, because of the scroll at the beginning of that movie, that, when Biggs went off to join the Alliance, Luke is talking about this rebellion that's been, organized and fighting for years. And it's like, nah, man, like, the rebellion's basically brand new. They're now out in the open and fighting as of right now.
Yeah.
Darth Vader is chasing her from 5 minutes before this.
Yeah. I have issues with this movie, and they're related to not necessarily, Rogue One, not Episode 4. Episode 4 is great.
Yeah.
They're more related to the fact that because they had to shoehorn it into a timeline, and not that the movie feels shoehorned, it's just the movie feels like they knew where the end point was when they started, right? So they had to write around that.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't give them any time to make good characters. Or make a good story, because they know at the end they have to kill everyone.
Really? You didn't think the story and characters were good?
Oh, the story is fine. It definitely has a story, and it's a cool story.
Uh-huh.
But the characters didn't get any chance to change. You get a person at the end who is slightly different from the person at the beginning, but only because of their conditions, not because of themselves. The character did not change. The situation the character was in changed.
I would disagree. Cassian changes in this movie.
Barely. How do you think that he changes?
He didn't kill Galen.
Okay, but you could already see that he was kind of iffy about killing people from the start.
No, in the beginning of the movie, he shoots that dude in the back.
The guy who was
the informant that he literally has to kill, because if the stormtroopers catch him, then everybody knows that they know about the Death Star. He just shoots that dude in the back with no second thought about it.
Yeah, okay. And then he doesn't kill someone who's connected to him, and that guy wasn't? I don't see a change in his character there.
Galen's not connected to him. He barely likes Jyn at that point in the story. Now, it makes sense that he doesn't need to kill him, right? He knows more than everybody else, and he knows that Galen's on their side and that the Death Star is already done, so there's no point in killing him. But it shows a change in character, right? He doesn't just do everything he has to do.
I don't know. I don't think I already saw that character as a guy who doesn't necessarily follow orders, and so him not following orders there didn't change my opinion about him.
Fair enough. Now, this is what I was going to say, though, earlier. They've already said that, so Star Wars Rebels, the cartoon, takes place before this, and given the tenor of this movie, you kind of come to understand that, Saul Guerrera and the people in Rebels and everybody else are different.
Was that guy in Rebels?
He is not yet in Rebels. He was in the Clone Wars, though.
He was?
He was in the Clone Wars cartoon.
The cartoon show. Okay. Yeah. So I don't have any reference point for any of those cartoon shows or whatever.
Right.
And I actually thought all the stuff with Saul Guerrero was really weird and confusing in this movie. Why did anyone care about him other than the fact that he saved her?
So I guess the novelization for this movie explains a little bit more about...
That's dumb. I shouldn't have to read a book to watch a movie.
I agree with you, and I think that they may have shot some of this stuff and didn't put it in.
Okay. I'm just telling you, based on what I saw, I didn't understand why Forrest Whitaker was here, why he was weird, and why anyone gave a crap about him.
Yeah. I understand that. I can see that part.
He's a hardline terrorist guy.
Yep.
And we need his terrorist stuff. That was fine. But then they didn't do that. They had a whole weird other thing. Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. So I guess in the Clone Wars, you meet Saul Guerrera there, and you kind of understand what he's about. and why he's a hardliner. And then I guess since the Rebels TV show takes place like 4 years before this, he's going to appear in that. And as well as they said, probably Cassian Andor and K2SO.
That's cool. The robot was the best character in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it had the most character.
It did. That's true.
And it had an arc. It started from not liking Jyn and thinking that she was a waste of time. And then by the end, he thought she was all right.
Yep.
That's a character arc.
I agree.
Yeah. No one else in the movie had a character arc.
Yeah, it sucks because...
Actually, except maybe Jin's dad, but we don't get to see him most of the time. So
again, so the novelization, apparently Galen is in it much more. That's
ridiculous. The movie should have been about Galen. I would have watched that movie so much more than the movie about the dumb girl.
I agree with you.
No offense, but the actress is fine. It's not her fault. It's the script's fault.
Oh, well, I agree with you that Galen should have been in it more. And
sure, yeah. The movie should have been about him. That sounds like a much more interesting movie.
Well, the dude that played Krennic says that there's a lot of footage that they did not put in this.
I mean, I feel like that happens with every movie these days.
As in this movie actually ended a whole nother way initially, before they reshot it.
Where like everyone didn't die?
I have no idea what that means. But he said that there's a whole different cut of this movie. Krennic isn't as much of a cut and dry psychopath.
Just I'm a bad guy.
Yeah, and
I didn't like him as a bad guy. It was not good.
Interesting. So you're as we shape up this conversation, you seem to not have liked it that much.
I liked the movie just fine as a fun thing to go see, and it's cool how it ties into Star Wars, and like all the references and stuff were really fun. It was fun to watch. It was fun to, if you make all these connections and stuff, it's really cool. As a fan, I think it's really fun. If I was not a fan of Star Wars and I was just grading this as a movie that I saw, I would be perplexed and confused and probably angry. Because it doesn't, the movie by itself, this is the thing I wanted to talk about, but the movie by itself, if you take away the Star Wars part of this movie makes no sense at all.
I don't think you can take away the Star Wars part of this movie.
That's the point. If you haven't seen Star Wars or understand the connections to Star Wars, this movie isn't a movie.
You can't say that, though. Star Wars is a huge saga. That's like saying, well, if you saw
Yes, you can. No. What if this is the first one you saw? If you don't know anything about Star Wars and then you watch this, you're confused and you have no idea what's going on.
Why would you see this first? That's like saying you saw episode 2 first.
It doesn't matter why. This movie doesn't stand by itself like the original movies can.
They don't, though. You can't see Return of the Jedi and be like, oh, well, that made complete sense.
But you can do pretty good.
No,
they
you
summarize
can't.
The beginning. They summarize pretty good what happened in the beginning, and then they try to tell you stories about the characters through their little dialogues or whatever. This movie, if you saw it by itself, would not hold up. That's my opinion.
I just don't think you can say that you would see it by itself.
So, but then the movie requires you to see other movies in order for it to make sense. That's ridiculous.
So do half of the other movies in Star Wars. Sure, you can start with episode 1 or episode 4.
Okay, well, I disagree, I guess, then, about that. I think you can watch episodes 4, 5, and 6 by themselves, and they're good movies. This movie, if you watch by itself, it's not good.
But if you don't see episode 4, why do you care about episode 5?
Episode 5 sums up everything that happens in episode 4 in the scroll, and then you see the cool stuff happen through the little dialogues and stuff.
There is absolutely no gut punch finding out that Vader is Luke's father if you haven't seen the first movie. You're like, oh, okay, cool. So there was like a twist here. Why do you care?
I mean, why does anyone care about anything? I don't know, Andrew.
I'm just saying, as a story, right? You're talking about how things are connected in Rogue One and why you don't care about them if you don't see other things. And my opinion, because I can't say that you're wrong,
sure.
But
so as a person who has seen all those other movies, I like this movie.
Yeah,
I think that if I didn't see all those other things multiple times in most cases, then I wouldn't like this movie at all, and I would just be confused. As evidenced by the fact that my parents saw this movie, and they were really confused about what was happening. Okay. Like, when does this take place?
I agree with you.
But doesn't this happen after the one where Han Solo's really old?
I agree with you.
Or like, doesn't this take place? Isn't Darth Vader the young kid in this? And like, they were all very confused.
I agree with you. I don't know how many times I could say that you're right, that if you haven't seen other Star Wars, that you wouldn't like this movie. But that's my point, that most Star Wars you would need. I mean, this is a fan movie.
I guess my point is,
like, you can't drop your parents into Return of the Jedi either if they haven't seen it.
But I mean, they have seen all those.
Okay,
movies.
Yeah, but imagine taking your parents then and taking them to Episode 3. Right?
They saw those movies too.
I know, but out of context, you're saying that you can't watch this out of context, but the other ones stand up. They don't. Like, you can't drop anyone into most of the Star Wars episodes at all.
No, but the difference is, like, this movie is okay to drop people that have seen those other Star Wars movies in because they know who Darth Vader is. They know who, like, these other characters are already. They know Princess Leia. They know these, maybe they remember any of the other characters that show up in the other movies.
I guess.
If you don't have any context for who those characters are and you come to this movie and you just see this guy go to a weird planet and you see a dude in a mask that's supposed to seem really cool, you're like, why is this guy cool? And then you see him murder a bunch of people later, you're like, oh, that's cool. That's why he's cool. But you didn't know that when they showed him.
I think at the beginning I said that this was a fan service movie.
Absolutely, and I agree with you 100% on that. There's a lot of fan service.
But you can't, I don't know. I have a hard time following your point that if you took the Star Wars out, it's bad because it's a Star Wars movie. So, yeah.
Okay.
And if you watch it out of context,
that's
bad.
Fine then.
Yeah. I mean, it's supposed to be connected directly to Episode 4.
I guess I think that making a movie, a movie should be good by itself. You shouldn't have to watch other movies to make that movie good.
I disagree with that entirely.
Okay, that's fine.
Return of the King is a great movie, but it's an awful movie if you watch it by itself.
Yeah, if you've never seen the other ones. Agreed. Yeah. I have issues with movies that run into like trilogies and stuff. Why can't movies just be good by themselves?
Because sometimes you don't have enough time.
Or maybe your story is too long and you need to cut it down.
No, come on. Really?
I don't know. Look, man, every movie that exists doesn't have to be a trilogy or a cinematic universe.
Well, I agree
they can
with
just
that.
have like one movie that tells one good story.
I agree with that.
And they tried to do that with this, but it required you to have seen every other Star Wars movie in order to tell it. Because like the Star Wars universe is big enough. They could have just told a story about any random part of that universe, not connected to Episode 4 or whatever, and just told some cool Star Wars stuff. But they didn't do that.
I think that you're in for those over the next couple of years with the young Han Solo and all that sort of stuff.
Nope, but then it has to tie back in because young Han Solo is a cool guy and Han Solo is a character that we know.
Okay, so you want Star Wars completely unrelated to any other Star Wars?
I want the books of Star Wars where it's like characters you don't know in places of the galaxy that you don't know that still have like Star Wars, the universe, right? They still have the X-Wings and TIE fighters and all that stuff, but it's not... It doesn't have to be Luke and Leia and the Force every single time.
Okay, but Han Solo doesn't count.
And maybe Han Solo counts, but it's Han Solo. We already know who that guy is. Why can't it be like Han Solo's friend?
Okay.
It's like why Episode 7 was pretty good, right? They took some new characters and they started doing new stuff. Oh, nope, there's Han Solo again. I don't know. It feels to me like they...
You're hurting me.
I mean, it's fun. Look, everyone. I liked this movie. I'm not saying that this movie was bad. I just thought that they chose to do a thing rather than to do something new, and I think that's unfortunate.
Okay, but my brain's not hurting from that. I can understand that point. My brain is hurting from you saying like trilogies aren't good.
I didn't say that they aren't good, but why does everything have to be a trilogy every time? Like, can't there just be movies that stand alone? In a movie that has no subtitle and no numbers on it, like, why can't it just be its own thing? It can't.
It
like,
almost was.
Why not? It wasn't, though.
Yeah.
This is not a standalone movie, as we both just agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So it's episode 3.75.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
3.9 or whatever.
Yeah.
I
think it is cool that they did a really good job of making it like the connective thing between them. Like it's actually pretty impressive how they were able to like maneuver all those pieces into the right places.
There really was a gap. I mean, you have to watch the Clone Wars and you have to watch this to really start to fill in the gaps between episodes 3 and 4 and 2 and 3, because there are some major leaps they made off screen. So I think this is bad to have if you're a fan of that.
And I'm not saying this movie is bad. Like I said, I had a great time. If you're a fan of all this stuff, you should absolutely go see it. And I just wanted to bring up an opinion.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual movie. Aside from how it's connected and all that sort of stuff, how cool were some of the Red 5 references? Or
so I heard that actually some of those scenes in that space battle at the end were cut scenes from A New Hope that they added those shots in.
Yeah, I didn't realize that because I went in knowing that there was some CGI people.
So I assumed that they had repurposed footage from A New Hope, literally, like they'd taken some of the scenes from the Death Star battle there and subbed it in here. But apparently that isn't the case.
Yeah, especially the last scene. I thought that was all CG. Apparently that last scene with Leia is literal footage that they cut from the first one, from episode 4. Which is shocking.
I think Leia's a CG character there.
Now
I'm pretty sure.
And I've been told two separate things now.
Okay. Well, the thing I read on the internet is that Leia is CG there. So I don't know.
Okay. I would believe that. It looked a little bit not right to me, but someone else told me that it wasn't. So I'm going to have to look that up, and I'll post it in the show notes for this.
The obvious one is the Moff Tarkin character, who is very obviously CG.
Yeah. His mouth doesn't move right.
Correct. And you don't notice it when he's on the screen by himself, but anytime you see him in relation to another person, things look weird. Yeah. And it's not their fault. I'm sure they spent quite a lot of money on the CG.
It looks good enough.
CG characters are weird. And actually, it was really funny. Another anecdote from my parents when they saw it. My mom's like, "Oh, isn't that guy? Wasn't he in it? Wow, he didn't change any of these years. He really looks the same." I'm like, "Mom, you didn't realize that wasn't a real guy? Like, that guy's been dead for years. Star Wars came out in the 70s, and that guy looks the same."
Yeah, I think he died 10 years ago.
He definitely died a long time ago. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty funny that my mom didn't notice. But then after I mentioned it to her, she was like, "His acting was kind of bad." It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was good.
This is good. I'm glad they put him in there.
It was smart to put him in there.
It's worth ignoring or overlooking the tiny bit of it. I don't think it would bother me on multiple viewings.
I think that totally. I think the addition of him had a chance to make the Galen and director Krennic arc cooler. If they had spent more time with that arc, which maybe they did, but didn't put in the movie or something.
They really missed the boat because they got an actor, Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen is so good in everything.
How did they not criminally use him for everything?
Criminally underused in this movie.
Yeah, the arc of seeing the things that he's talking about, like him slowly undermining the Empire and all that. There's a section that I read about in the book called Imperial Archives. And it's like a whole bunch of, fake Imperial letters and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And they lay out how Galen convinced the other scientists that the reactor would overload how it was built. And he had put an exhaust port in the designs that they didn't really think was necessary. And he was like, "Oh yeah, we can take it out." And then when they were about to take it out, he said, "Oh no, there's this problem with waste that we need to get rid of. And in the old designs, there was this exhaust port, and we can find another solution, but it's going to take us months." And Krennic was like, "No, go back to the old plans." So he kind of was like this master manipulator on, people saying, "Oh, there's a problem with this design." He was like, "Oh yeah, you're right. There is, totally get rid of it." And then finding a way to get back to his failsafe, the adding the flaw to the Death Star.
See, that sounds like a cool part of the movie I want to see.
Right.
Why? Dang it. They could have cut out 2/3 of the battle and put that in. That would have been way better.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff in there that they could, or explaining.
I have another question, actually. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to sidetrack us completely. So, why are there AT-ATs in this movie?
Why are there not?
Well, what's the purpose of having an AT-AT to shoot at your own stuff?
Oh, well, I mean, it's the only place in the whole galaxy that all the Imperial plans are stored. You wouldn't have any defenses.
So, the only other place we've seen AT-ATs, or like the other, the use everyone knows is that snow battle in Hoth, right? Uh-huh. And they mention, right, like you see the big Empire ships up top. They're like, okay, we can't. The rebels have a shield generator. We can't get through it. We have to use these big, powerful, indiscriminate kind of weapons and blow the generator up so we can start landing our spaceships and stuff. They talk about that in the movie. Like the Empire guys all say, this is why we have to use these things. How are these big, giant, lumbering things useful at protecting your own base when they're like indiscriminate and they kind of shoot your own like they blew up a lot of their own stuff more than the like small band of guerrillas.
I noticed in the scenes that unlike on Hoth, so like on Hoth, if you followed some of the old stuff, you could tell they were enclosed, right? And they were enclosed because they were also troop carriers. Mm-hmm. In this, they were empty in the middle, so they were carrying cargo and stuff like that around.
Okay.
So
now, see, that is an interesting. I did not notice that at the time.
Yeah, the X-wings like fly by them, and you can see they're cut out,
hollow
they're
on the inside or whatever.
Hollow on the midsection. So they were used.
Okay,
for
so they're
some
using
sort of
it to like move stuff around or whatever.
Yeah, and then like why
cool.
not have weapons on it, right? Because you already have the AT-AT design.
Yeah, because like I was looking, watching that part, and I was like, this doesn't make sense, right? Like you have these big lumbering things that are attack vehicles for sieging a base, blowing up shield generators, and then you're putting them on your own planet to like, I don't know. That part, like why they were there, confused me a little bit.
If StarCraft taught us anything, siege weapons can also be great defensive weapons.
That's true. They didn't do a good job of that in this, though, because they certainly blew up a lot of their own stuff more than the band of 20 rebels or whatever.
Yeah, well, you got to make a battle scene, I guess. I didn't think they were that out of place.
Oh, it didn't feel out of place that they existed. It was just weird to me, like thinking, like why were they there? Mm-hmm. Anywho, that was my thought about that battle. I don't know. The battle scene was fine. There were a lot of explosions.
It was interesting that they kind of like explain why there's no Blue Squadron ever.
They all died.
Yeah. Or why there's no, what was that admiral's name? I don't know, the other Mon Calamari that Admiral Akbar apparently takes over for because this dude gets stuck.
Because he dies.
Yeah, in the middle of the battle, but he seems like,
oops,
the leader or whatever. Yeah. You know what? Because this is one of the reasons I wanted to see it multiple times is because the only problem I can think of with the whole movie is, okay, they said he's already taking his ship away, but Tantive V or whatever Leia's ship is called, I think it's Tantive V, is already docked with his ship, but
we're a diplomatic transport on a peaceful mission to Alderaan. Andrew.
Right. Yeah.
It's a diplomatic transport.
Right, but how did C-3PO and R2 get on it if he had already left?
I don't know. Maybe they left later.
And caught up in the middle of the battle somehow.
Or maybe when he left at that time, that wasn't when they left to, fly their ship.
There's a chance. There's a chance that maybe this is explained in the book too. I don't know. Maybe that ship with Leia on it went somewhere else right before the Star Destroyer shows up to catch them in Episode 4.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it was at least nice that they were like, "Hey, remember that exhaust port and how you thought it was ridiculous? Not."
Yeah, that was cool. I liked, like I said, the way they were able to like tie all that stuff together. It's like, oh, the one random weakness in their giant super weapon. Actually, it makes sense because this guy put it there.
Yeah, it's not like they had to scour the plans for it either. They already knew it was there. They just had to find out where it was.
Right. Like Star Wars, the original movie, is great, and you didn't need to have this context there, but having this context is cool. It doesn't, so.
Yeah. How'd you feel about no opening scroll?
That's fine. Who cares?
Oh, it's interesting to me. I kind of missed at least the music,
What scroll is there to have?
I mean, arguably, what scroll was there to have in Episode 5 or 6 and 2 and 3?
What? There's a lot. man. You had to sum up what happened in episode 4 so that when people see episode 5, they remember.
Okay,
because
so
it was
why
like
didn't they
3
sum up
years
what
in between
happened in
movies or
episode
whatever.
3?
Because you don't care about anything in episode 3 to watch this.
Yeah. I don't know. It was odd. I'm fine without the scroll, but they didn't even put the Star Wars at the beginning of it.
Yeah. I don't know.
I just missed that opening three beats, you know?
You just wanted that song.
Or just some of it. I don't care.
Dun, dun, dun. John Williams, the GOAT.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't read reviews and stuff much anymore. I keep saying that on this podcast. But after seeing it, I wanted to see what people's thoughts were before we talked about it because I didn't find that much wrong with it.
I don't think I read a lot of reviews about this either.
I just knew I was going to see it anyway, so what was the point?
Yeah, same.
I've had a running disappointment with Forbes lately. I think that they're just a junk publication these days.
Are you actually reading things on Forbes, or are you reading Forbes contributors? Because those are different.
Oh, that's a good question.
Forbes contributors are just blogs that people post, and anyone can post one.
This says contributor at the top of it.
That means it's not actually from Forbes.
Okay, well, this is junk, and most of their stuff from contributors is junk.
Yep, you're right. That's true.
This guy says he has 5 problems with Star Wars Rogue One.
Okay.
1, another Death Star plot. I would say that completely misses the point.
Probably.
2, CGI Tarkin. Why is that a problem?
I don't know. It could be. This is a tough one because CGI Tarkin looks fine now, but like I wonder if maybe we watch this movie in like 5 years and go, oh God, this looks horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, go back to the Lord of the Rings movies. They still look fine. It's like, okay, well,
but
that's
they
what
don't
it was.
have, like it's different because Gollum is not a human, right?
Yeah.
If you go back and watch like other movies that have tried to do CGI people, sometimes they look really bad.
Yeah, but I mean, I see the CGI already. I'm gonna see it now. I'm gonna see it later, but it helps the movie more than it hurts it. I think to have him in there.
I agree with you. I think it's fine that he's there.
3, far too much going on. Bounces around planets as rapidly as Mission Impossible. I think again, you're missing the point. You bounce around the universe in Star Wars. Yeah.
It did try to do a lot in a small runtime.
Too many characters. Why did they have the 2 Asian guys, basically, is what he's saying.
I think that's fair.
I don't know. This is part of the other... he's saying like, oh, why do you have Darth Vader, Tarkin, Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, all these other characters? And
so I think those people were okay.
I think
the blind guy and the dude with the heavy weapon seem to just be there to say the Force.
To be honest, I thought at the very end scene there where he like has to go flip the switch,
it was cool.
I thought there was a split second where I thought he's going to light up a lightsaber right now.
Which would have been ridiculous.
Why would it have been ridiculous?
He wasn't a Jedi. Jedis have been extinct.
That's
what they tell you in episode 4.
Except that in episode 4...
Which happens supposedly 10 minutes later.
Look, there's a Jedi alive in episode 4. And in Star Wars Rebels, there's a Jedi alive. And multiple, I think, actually. So it wouldn't be that out of place for there to be another hidden Jedi.
Tarkin says in the beginning of episode 4... It's like, oh, the Jedi are a distant memory. Their power is gone or whatever. Uh-huh. So, like, if he thinks that not just because the Empire thinks that, like, they must have been gone a long time.
Except that, but there's precedent.
Gone in people's minds.
There's precedent for hidden Jedi.
But you can't have a hidden Jedi every damn movie, dude. It's super boring.
I know. Look, I agree with you, and I'm glad that it didn't happen. Because then how do you say, like, well, I guess he would have died when the planet blew up anyway, but...
yeah.
I don't know. I just, for half a second, I wanted a lightsaber.
No. I'm very happy there were no lightsabers in this movie. In fact, for people that didn't already have lightsabers. No new lightsabers.
Okay, I'm fine with it. I just saying half a second.
I think I would have been happy if that guy wasn't in the movie, too.
Interesting.
I don't think I would have noticed that much. He was fine. I don't think he was bad, like a bad character or anything. I just don't think he added that much. They could have spent more time on the arcs that I did want to hear about, which are Jyn and Cassian and Galen and Krennic.
Okay, and then this guy says that it's also missing something special that makes it Star Wars.
That's a dumb comment and doesn't mean anything.
I agree with you, especially since he says that Force Awakens was the best of the Star Wars films.
He's wrong about that too.
Oh, by a long shot.
Wow, is he wrong about that? That's okay. All right. Well, we've agreed that Forbes contributors are garbage, and we're never going to talk about them again.
Yep. Essentially, I'm done with Forbes.com because apparently they promote their contributors and not real articles.
They promote the contributors that get popular.
Oh, okay. Well, that guy apparently is popular because that's all over my freaking Feedly and everything else.
He's popular because he has opinions that no one likes. And so when you have opinions that no one likes, people click on your article, dude. You just got clickbaited.
That's why I don't read the internet anymore. I liked it.
You can read good articles written by smart people, or you can read that stuff.
Yeah.
You might have to look for the good stuff, but it's there.
I agree. I don't know. Okay, well, you had another article you wanted to talk about.
I just wanted to point out actually, I mentioned a lot of the points that this guy makes, but Mr. Plinkett, if anyone knows him, he's the guy that did those like hour-long takedowns of the trilogy or the prequel trilogy movies.
Okay.
And he has a YouTube video that's like an hour and a half long talking about why episode 1 is a crappy movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right about all of it, and it's really funny. But it is an hour and a half long, and it's really, really long.
Okay.
Anyway, he did one about Rogue One that's like 11 minutes. And just like mention, because, dude, who can rant about this movie for an hour and a half? It's not that bad.
No, it's I mean, your problems
this
with
movie
it aside, this movie is
a lot better than episode 1, right? Or like even episode 2 and 3.
Yeah, by a long shot.
I agree with you. Anyway, if you liked his talking about those first 3 movies and you watched those hour-long videos, you might enjoy this also. He has some similar complaints to the ones that I said, where like he doesn't like the fact that you can't watch it divorced from the Star Wars-ness of it.
Okay, but there's room to watch it
anyway,
divorced.
it is an interesting critique of the movie.
They really need to bring back the Rogue Squadron after this. Like, okay, now you've got Rogue One. You've got the idea out there that Rogue exists. Let's bring back Rogue Squadron. Like, and make a separate line of spin-off movies about Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Because then that's what you're talking about. Yeah, Star Wars that's not Star Wars.
Star Wars side stories. Like, they don't have... There's an entire universe out there that exists with all these planets and stuff. We've seen a bunch of them. Let's go back and see what happens on that planet that they blew up the big city on. Like, I want to know what Saul Guerrera's people on the other side of the planet thought about all this. They only blew up that one town or whatever, right? The whole planet's not gone. So it's stuff like that. There's other stories to be told out there in the universe.
I think there's not much going on Jeddah. The main city on Jeddah was the only place that really existed there.
Okay, well, I didn't know that because I'd never seen that before.
Well, so this is one of my, not complaints, but one of the things that really connect was like Jeddah, Jedi. Like, they didn't say explicitly. They kept saying Holy City. They kept saying that like this is where kyber crystals are from. But like they didn't say like this is where the Jedi are from. You guys, you had to know.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of picked up on it with the like temple and the lightsabers and the guys holding the lightsaber in the temple and that kind of stuff. But whatever.
It's cool. I recommend it. I think I need to see it again. I don't know if it would make it better or worse, but I think I need to see it again.
I think we both said that we recommend this for people who are fans of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And if you're a fan of Star Wars, this movie is awesome. And if you are not a fan of Star Wars, maybe don't watch it.
I thought Darth Vader was going to be only in that scene where he was like talking to Krennic. I was like, this is a really disappointing use of Darth Vader in the long run. And then the end.
Yeah. So cool.
You finally get to see him come out. That was pretty great. Interesting. I want to know what they think. Like, is that Star Destroyer chasing her from the battle, or is there a break where they're like, oh no, we're not. Yeah, we're from a different planet. You know, you've been chasing somebody else for a while.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's interesting. Anyway, I think that's it. Did we run out of things to talk about?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're good.
Okay. In summation, this movie's good. JJ hates trilogies, and Star Wars is awesome.
I don't hate all trilogies. I just hate that everything has to be a trilogy these days.
I think what we're missing, JJ, is the old Star Trek series.
Yeah, man, bring back Picard.
Well, not the TV series, but the series of movies where, if you saw the previous ones, you know what happened, but do you need to watch...
You don't need to watch Star Trek 3 to see Star Trek Save the Whales.
No, you don't need to watch Star Trek 3 at all, probably, but...
Yeah, it's not a good one.
Just know that Spock comes back after 2.
If you want to watch a good one, you watch 2, and then you watch Star Trek Save the Whales afterwards, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say Undiscovered Country's pretty good, too.
I like that one.
Yeah. But see, like, you could go from Save the Whales to Undiscovered Country and never know what happened in Save the Whales.
And it's good because Star Trek V is the worst one.
That's the Find God?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you could skip that one entirely.
Yeah, don't watch it. Anyway. Andrew, where can people find us?
They can go on to our Twitter at WeWereGamers or Facebook.com/WeWereGamers or Instagram, where I'll post more photos of how bad I am at Super Mario Run, and JJ might use it eventually. Or look for our
I'll post a picture of this microphone.
Blog at weweregamers.com and send us your thoughts on Rogue One. We'll probably read them on the air as I try to convince JJ that connected movies are good things at podcast at weweregamers.com.